Good. Good yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Good. I can hear you perfectly. Okay, let's kick this off. What is happening with... Oh, I'm going to have you on Wednesday's show for trends in the housing market if you're not busy. Oh, you're probably working. I keep forgetting that. But...
Yeah, I made time last time, but the first guy, he knew a lot and he went on for an hour, so...
Oh, sorry about...
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, you were covered there, so...
Yeah. Okay, so... Needles and fruit. What is happening there, bud? Is it all over your news? What is happening? Fill us in.
Well, I won't presume to be spot on, but yeah, it's a combination of pissed off, I don't know, fruit pickers maybe, and yeah, probably there's more of an agenda behind there and copycats, and yeah, and maybe there's some sort of like, for example, they want to have more control over the food supply, so they're going to roll out more regulations on, okay, fruits, like fruit and veg and food production has to be regulated more.
Mm-hmm.
So,
because I'm watching the video here, I'm watching the video, and they're putting them through metal detectors. They're putting
and who stands to make money out of the metal detectors? So.
Oh, you see, yep, you're on to something here. You're on to something. You're right. Yeah, so there must be like contracts in line ready to go, right?
Yeah, they could be all sorts of players, and yeah, so. But the farmers are usually very hard pressed, and I think there's an agenda there as well to drive the farmers out so the Chinese can buy them out. So the Chinese will essentially own our food supply.
Well, that's happening.
Well.
That's happening in Africa right now.
Yeah. So food security and the food bowl is a major issue. So, and it seems our governments don't really care about us. Mm-hmm. They just they're more for supporting foreign entities. So,
I have a question. Let me ask you a question, Anon. It's an important question. When is Australia, Canada, heck, maybe even the UK, when are they going to bring back a grassroots government movement for the people, by the people, to protect people's interests? Because without the people, without the pillars of the people in society, none of these companies stand to gain anything. When is someone going to come into power? When is someone going to take the role of actually leading the people to victory? What happened to that, Anon?
Well, this is a very big issue, and with the Commonwealth nations have somewhat been duped. If you look into things like our original constitution, especially in Australia, New Zealand, etc., I think it's like 54 Commonwealth nations. Don't get me wrong, there might be less or now, but we still hadn't seceded from the original sort of British UK rule. Mm-hmm. Officially, but they've just moved into this corporate entity rule, which, if you look into things, it doesn't conform with what we should have in place.
That's right.
So if you look at our original constitution and the monarch and everything, the Queen and the sovereign is supposed to be the defender of the faith of the people. But what we have now in place is this corporate entity that is registered in the US on the Securities Exchange Commission website, and they're a foreign corporation, and they're entities that aren't even outlined in our original constitution. So it goes quite deep, but essentially we have these corporate governments ruling over us that don't care about our rights, and they're just selling us out. So yeah, they don't care about us, and they're not for us. They're not for the people. They're not by the people.
Yeah,
so voting.
In Canada's the same thing. We have Crown land here. We have land that's locked that we can't build on. We have lots of Crown land. We have lots of. I think we have attorney generals and all this stuff from the UK, and yeah, Canada's the same exact thing, and it is very, very sad what is happening. And then when our Prime Minister gets sworn in as Prime Minister, he has to go see the Queen right away.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, when they swear an oath, like the Governor General, the Prime Ministers that get sworn in,
Mm-hmm.
there's a bit of word trickery there. So they're swearing an oath of allegiance to another entity, as such, like to a Queen of Australia or a Queen of Canada, Queen of New Zealand, etc. When so they intermix it when they only should be swearing an oath to like the British rule, like the Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So if you read the rules of the original constitutions, that has never been put to rest, because in order to put the original constitution to rest, you need a referendum, and the Queen needs to sign off on it. We've never had that, so they've just gone along with these fake corporate governments that are complete separate entities. Like there's no Australian government entity in the original constitution, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It goes quite deep, but there's a whole word trickery as well. So whenever you see a corporate entity spelt in all uppercase words, that isn't English. If you look in the Oxford Styles Manual,
Mm-hmm.
That's not how you spell a name. And they hyphenate things, and there's a lot of games being played, and a lot of our courts aren't even real, so they're kangaroo courts.
Yeah.
All for the sole purpose to extract wealth. It's not for actual justice. There's more well-researched people that go a lot deeper into this, but it's a complete farce what we're under at the moment. It's
very, 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 very sad. And how the English intermixed with other cultures. Like, I'll give you an example, because I'm a very good Portuguese historian, and when we surrendered Portuguese Africa, we had a huge portion of Africa. The African countries said, well, we weren't that bad under the Portuguese. Could we put their logo or their from their flag on our flag and just show that it was like a previous Portuguese colony? And the English said, no, that's going to attract more wars against you. You shouldn't do that. It's like, wow. So the English meddled against other cultures or other colonial powers into basically dissolving their history. You know what I'm saying? Dissolving other countries. When you were taught your history, you were never taught, Anon, why the British took the Northern Passage, right?
No.
I'll tell you why. Is it okay if I tell you?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
The British took the Northern Passage instead of going around the Cape. Not because it took long. Not because the Cape took longer. Because going around the Cape is very beneficial by picking up supplies in Angola, picking up supplies which was already thriving. Angola, Portuguese Africa, Guinea, the Azores, all those places, the Cape Verde Islands, were all prime trading ports. But why did the English have to go through the north? Because if they went through Portuguese waters south of the Azores, they'll blow their ships up. But they never talk about that. Wow. They will never talk about that. That's why they took the Northern Passage and took the risks they took that they didn't need to take. All they had to do was get along with the Portuguese and they wouldn't have that problem. But they just went along with their own thing and decided they knew what was best, right? But they won't tell you that in history books. They will never tell you that. But
yeah, well, even when I was in high school, they're very rarely touched on history, like actual history, and I think from what I've heard, back in the 1970s, they stopped teaching Latin and proper English. So this is where the deception has started, like, because a lot of our words come from Latin and other languages. Mm-hmm. So we've been taught a debased language, so we're essentially giving up our rights and buying into all this crap.
You want to know something about language really quick? I want to tell you. I was watching the TV series Narcos with my wife, the TV series about Pablo Emilio Escobar, right? And I was telling my wife, I told my wife, I wish you could understand Spanish, because if you understood what they were saying, it would be better, because you would enjoy the show more. And my wife goes, but there's subtitles, I could read it. I'm like, no. See, Spanish is different. Spanish and Portuguese are different. Spanish, the words mean something and they feel something. Where English, it's just you're being told something, you're not feeling something. Yeah,
exactly.
Trust me, you have to trust me on this one, Anon. I speak Spanish, Portuguese, and English, read and write text.
Yeah.
When we speak in Portuguese, we're feeling something. Or if we're talking together in Spanish, we are actually feeling something. But when you're talking to me in English, you are telling me something.
Yeah, there's many other languages that have words and meanings that the English dictionary doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And there is an agenda to kill off language and being able to communicate. So all these words are dying, and they're bringing in these generic words and consolidating words. Mm-hmm. Even when you watch movies, they deface the meaning. I was watching the Mission Impossible Fallout movie the other night,
mm-hmm.
and there was an agenda to paint anarchists as the bad guys, the nasties in this movie. And if you go and look up the word anarchy, it's more about being peaceful and self-governing.
That's right, like libertarians.
But even like you look at what libertarianism is today, it's not about liberty. It's all leftist and control.
Oh, okay.
Agenda, like, you know what I mean? The Democrats, they want to like tax you into the ground and take your property and everything. It's not really liberty.
I'm talking about the Libertarian Movement Party in Canada.
Yeah, their words are just getting flipped upside down and defaced. Like, so people watch these movies like Mission Impossible, and when they think of the word anarchy, they think chaos. But really, what we are in chaos.
Yeah. So but a lot of people are forgetting, Anon, that without the anarchy and chaos, that movie wouldn't have been made. Because if you trail history back, it goes right back to 1776 in the Boston Harbor in Massachusetts. What am I talking about? The Boston Tea Party. When the Yankees went against the British and said, we're not paying your tax on tea, and that's it. They took the call to arms. They committed high treason against the crown. The Yankees went against the English, and they went against the crown, and they fought hard, but they won for a reason. And the founding fathers made sure in the American Constitution that the people are free of government and free of rule, and the right to bear arms to protect their land against the government from coming in and taking their land. And without the anarchists, that movie would have never been made. And Anon, quite frankly, I don't think we'd be talking to each other today without that event in 1776.
Exactly. The debt that we have, like the world debt, is just not repayable. It's just astronomical. And it's just going to grow and grow and grow. So what's going to happen here? And people are cluing on. They're not wanting to get into these large mortgages anymore. They don't want. They know it's
They're probably
it's not a winnable game.
They're probably watching my show once in a while because I've been covering the Australian housing market for over 3 years now. And I knew it was a powder keg. I used to call it the powder keg of Australia. I knew it was a powder keg 3-4 years ago when I saw prices going up in Sydney like they were, and I saw that wages weren't catching up. I knew it was a powder keg. Oh man, did I ever jump on that years ago? And look what's happening today. You know, people are waking up to reality. You know, and I believe. Anon, what do you believe in cities? I believe that cities are a fraud. I believe that. I believe you're paying too much. What do you think?
Most definitely. Oh yeah, most definitely. And we're going. It's a rinse and repeat situation at the moment. Like all the Aussie proper are moving out of the cities here, just as the Canadian proper are escaping the cities where you are. Mm-hmm. And I only moved to the city for work, and I thought, earning six figures will be okay. But
you got duped. You got duped.
Like, yeah, I got completely duped, and it was I should have asked my potential employer when I interviewed with them. You cover the relocation costs and 12 months rent or something, because the rent is so expensive, and they won't accept a 6-month lease. They only accept 12-month leases here, and you have to have it. Yeah, so I got roped into this shitty studio apartment, paying $530 a week in the city, and it was a street right off the highway. I couldn't sleep at night because the glass wasn't glazed and just the car fumes coming in. Like in some places, $530 a week, you get a swimming pool, tennis court, like a luxury pad, but this is just like a rundown hovel. And I couldn't sleep at night, and working in these big cities, it's just a snake pit. Everyone's undermining you, and no one wants to work together.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not worth it. I'd rather just stay where I was. So,
So you were duped into going to the big city. That was Sydney, right?
Yeah, and I'm still there, but I moved an hour and a half out, but I'm still thinking of getting out. But I'm stuck in a job at the moment. But I'm going to see if my employer will let me work remotely, and I'll just get out of the city. So yeah.
Yeah, hopefully you can do something remotely, and you can work out of a nice cottage, maybe somewhere out in the country, way out in the country, a nice cottage, that's got internet signal.
Yeah, because there's no real need for me to be in the office, and it's like, God, we go through growing up being managed and overlooked by our teachers and institutions, and then as an adult, we're in that situation where we're overlooked and managed as well. So why should it be an issue if we get the work done? Why should there be any complaints? Like, why do we need to spend 2 hours a day commuting, wasting our time, and everyone has to start work and finish work around the same time. So the streets are just chockers. There's like accidents. There's like so many car crashes every day, like people dying in Sydney, especially trucks. Trucks just like have an immunity. They just like run people down, and like they don't do anything about it.
Wow.
Wow,
that's sad, dude. That's really sad. So yeah, you know what? Like me, I guess you were following my show for a while because you've commented on a lot of my videos, and you've commented a bit on like me leaving the big city and laying down in a small country town. You know what I'm saying? And I very much like to just get a patch of dirt way out, out of the city somewhere, and it wouldn't be that expensive to build something your own. Get some timber and some roofing and stuff. Get some cement and lay the foundations. I don't think it would be very hard to do yourself, and it wouldn't cost much if it came down to that. But you just need, your houses. Well, I'll give you some advice. If you're going to build your own foundation from scratch, I'm just going to give you a bit of advice. Make sure you get a cement finisher in there when you pour your concrete. Just get a finisher there just to finish it for you, because you won't know how to finish it. No offense. You can watch all the YouTube videos in the planet. You won't know how to finish your cement. So make sure you get a finisher in there, because once it dries, it's going to look like crap.
Yeah, well, I doubt that would cost $100,000.
No, a finisher, you give him a case of beer, and like $80, and he'll do it for you. Find a Portuguese guy there. He'll do it for you for a case of beer.
Yeah. Yeah, but these apartments, like what we've got a situation here, even on the outer suburbs of Sydney, I'm noticing where I'm moved to. You have these nice old houses in the suburbs, but they're knocking them down now, and they're building these 5-story complexes, and they're all just generic cookie cutter, one after the other. Are they most of them are empty.
Are they wood framed or poured concrete?
Concrete.
Okay, concrete's okay. At least it's poured concrete. Here in Vancouver, they're making 3-story ones out of wood framing.
Okay.
It's garbage. Yeah. Continue.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm looking down right now on the 4th floor of my apartment block, and they've knocked down a whole bunch of houses below to build the next set. But there's like 5 in my street. and most of them aren't even lived in. Like, I look over and I can see a whole bunch of them, and there's no lights on at night.
Mm-hmm.
So only probably a quarter of these units are lived in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of vacancy, but they fixed the prices. It's not they're not operating off a free market.
Mm-hmm.
They're all price rigged. So around 600,000 for a 2-bedroom or whatever. So probably for a 1-bedroom.
ANON.
So
ANON, you see my show. You watch my show. Did you see what you could buy in Atlanta for $260,000?
Yeah, seen your examples.
5-bedroom, 4-bath with a pool, and then people are like, "Oh, but what about work?" Hello, you're not $1 million in debt. I'd rather be $260,000 in debt and then find work than have $1 million mortgage and have a job.
Exactly. It all comes down to why do you need to be in an office these days? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
And you're forced to work with these people that don't even conversing. Like Australians are pretty laid back. They like to have a joke and we're a friendly bunch.
Mm-hmm.
But in Sydney, with the immigration, all these people coming from other cultures, they don't have that friendly aspect about them. So they don't like joking about. They don't like chit chat or anything. So I find it a very different culture in Sydney now.
Is it antisocial?
Very antisocial. A lot of backstabbing and undermining and bitching behind the scenes, and so it's not that fun. Because everyone's trying to get ahead. So how they get ahead is by undermining and sabotage and stuff. So it's no fun.
You know, when I used to work years ago, when I worked in an office, and somebody would say something about somebody to me, and they're like, I would look at that person and say, everybody hates you, right? I would say that every time, I don't know what the situation is, so someone would come up to me, oh, did you see what he did in the back? Did you see what Buddy did in the back room with this and this and that, trying to talk bad about them? I look at them and say, do you know everybody hates you here? So they stop coming to me, ANON, and telling me things.
Yeah. Well, at my work, it's like everyone has their little cubicle. It's like that old 90s movie Office Space.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to go and see this. If you haven't seen it,
I've seen Office Space. I saw it in theaters like 20 years ago.
Yeah. So it's sort of like that now. But some offices have open plan, but where I'm at, they have divided cubicles.
Mm-hmm.
And they use this program called Slack. It's like a chat program.
Yeah.
And I looked at the statistics, and over a couple of years, almost 300,000 messages were exchanged.
Right.
And about 80% of them were private one-to-one messages. And it makes me think, out of these private one-to-one messages, how much work was actually done? Was it more bitching, or was it actual work? Because you have these chat rooms.
Yeah.
Where you discuss work.
Yeah, where we discuss work. Yeah, right. But, wow.
Yeah.
But
so I've come in, and it's just, it's just undermining, and they don't really want to actually fix things or be creative. It's all just job being.
How's the dating scene there? How's the dating scene? Because when I was living in Vancouver, because I'm under 5'10", women wouldn't touch me. They wouldn't even look at me, and they wouldn't acknowledge me because I'm too short. How is the dating scene there? Is it tough, or is it kind of easy?
Yeah, tough. I've tried going to when I first moved here, I tried going to bars and clubs and stuff, and but mostly just bars, because I'm more of an afternoon sort of pub kind of guy, and it's just weird. There's I don't know. If you're not a multi-millionaire, they don't want to talk to you, sort of thing. And there's a lot of everyone's sort of the sort of crowd. If you're an immigrant, because a lot of the immigrants come with their arranged wives and families, so so you don't really socialize with them
Mm-hmm.
at work. And if you go to the pubs, there's a lot of single mothers. They even bring their prams to the pub, and it's like, yeah, it's a bit weird.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of given up. I don't bother. Like,
Okay.
so yeah.
And so, okay, yeah, me too. Like luckily, I found my wife. Luckily, but I found her on a dating site, and yeah, it was different. It was very different because locally I couldn't do anything. Just locally, like I would have to travel to meet women because locally it was a huge problem. No one would give me a chance. You know, I had this great resume, great life, great future ahead of me, and everyone just like, no, you're too short. It's like, but
in general, like, people don't want to get to know one another these days.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
And it's all about status. Everyone's trying to measure you up.
Yep.
Where like that, they ask you questions to see where you are in the pecking order of things. Like, oh, what's your job? Like, they're trying to gauge how much you earn and shit.
Yeah.
And where you live, what suburb you live in.
Yeah.
So they don't care about like who you are or get to know you. So what's the point? And you just hear all these nightmare stories about most people get divorced, marriages break down because of financial issues. So there's no real point.
No, yeah, you're right. There is no real point. So Evan, listen. Yeah.
Oh, just one thing. Also, the Australian government's very biased, like, against men. Mm-hmm. Like, women, like, it's all about poor women, the poor women and everything, and they get maternity leave and all this stuff. They get a lot of perks in the corporate life, and it's like, well, like the men, we don't, like, we tend to work longer hours, and it's a bit tough. Like when do we get some R&R? When do we get to like go out and be social? It's like at the end of the week, after working 40-hour weeks, excluding all the commute times, you really don't really want to socialize. So
it's well, our government's People Toba.
Yeah.
Yeah, People Toba, and not mankind, people kind.
Yeah, it's all very gynocentric. Like, yeah, like men get the raw end of the deal.
But did you do you know what I'm talking about? Our government, our Prime Minister of Canada, doesn't call it Manitoba, it's People Toba, and mankind is people kind, not mankind.
Well, that's another thing, because mankind, like, has particular specific meaning, and like when you say humankind or people kind, it's not the same meaning when you go to the roots of the words in legal sense. So
no, well, that's just the Canadian government. He has no idea. You do, I do, we know. They don't. That's okay. We know more than it's just. That's why we're here talking tonight, right? And that's why we have people listening to us tonight, right? But,
exactly. Like if you look into it, like hue, the word hue means color. Mm-hmm. So when you're joining words, you're defacing and changing the meaning of the words. Mm-hmm. So so mankind pertains to our species, for flesh and blood.
Yeah.
Entities. Right. And so there's a whole major deception going on that we're all tricked into, and we spend our whole early years being indoctrinated into these government schools and stuff. Mm-hmm. But even the private schools, they accept public funding in order to and the condition is, if these private schools accept public funds, they have to teach all this crap. So even the private schools are indoctrinating future generations. So
yeah, it's scary. I'm just forming in my mind images of what you're telling me, and I just picture so many children being misled or confused at such a young age, and they shouldn't be.
Exactly. Like, our rights are just getting eroded every day. Like, and it's just insanity. Like what's being rolled out, and we're all signing up for this shit. Mm-hmm. Like like I followed some YouTube channels. This is where I've learned it all from, but it's all based in fact, and they provide references. Like I followed this other mob that covered the language deception of what's going on, and they uncovered this Chicago Styles Manual, and it all ties back to like the naming of all these entities, all corporate entities in all uppercase wording, and what they're using is American Sign Language. So it's a form of dog Latin. So it's not proper English that they're using. No. So when you're reading it, you think you're reading English, but it's not, and that's how we're getting tricked into these contracts. Even on our birth certificate, we're born with. We're given a Christian name, a family name, like first and middle name, but then we're giving a surname. And if you go and get out your birth certificate, the surname is spelled in all uppercase letters.
Yes.
But the first name and the middle name is your Christian name. That's your given name. And that's the name that you should be using. But the surname, that's where they trick you. So, and you start using that, applying for driver's licenses and passports, and all your contracts are through that. So that's where they get you. So, it goes pretty deep.
I have Daniel Martinelli in the comments saying, changing the meaning of words is corruption of the meaning of the words. It's the dictionary definition of corruption.
Yeah, it's a fraud. And, it's a complete fraud. And, and that's where they've got us. And that's why I think buying property, like going back to what your main purpose of your channel about property, well, I don't think we're actually buying property the proper way, because why is it that when we go and get these large mortgages or save all our lifetime to buy our land and build our properties, our homes, only to be imposed upon with council taxes and all this other rubbish, and if you don't pay, they just add on all these extra fees and index it with like inflation and various rates. And if you don't pay, they'll take your property off you. So that says to me, you don't own the property. You don't have actual proper title, like full title, like full fee simple absolute sort of standing. So, and especially getting out a mortgage, like a 30-year mortgage, and even when you pay it off, do the banks actually come to you and give you the full title, or are they keeping that to themselves and still holding it over you, even though you've paid it off completely? Yeah. Like all these questions are unanswered.
Well, I paid off my house completely, and I was given the land title records too. I was given the land title and everything.
Okay.
When I bought my house.
Yeah, but there could be a deception there, because like, what about council tax? What happens if you don't pay it? So
yeah, I know. I just be Johnny be good and pay my taxes and just leave it at that, and hopefully that the tax money goes towards the schools. Because remember, Anon, on my situation, I don't mind paying the tax because my kids I have 3 children.
Yeah.
And then they're using
Well, that's the thing. I don't mind paying for the services I use, but when you're seeing these council, like these councils that deem themselves as local government, they're driving around in Mercedes-Benzes and BMWs, and they're all embroiled in kickbacks, and they're selling off public assets to Chinese developers and stuff. Like there was a big story even here in Australia on the Gold Coast where the mayor was selling off or brokering deals with Chinese developers. They were selling off like public assets, like places for the old people to play bowls.
Mm-hmm.
He was selling it off so the Chinese can come in and build apartment blocks, and he gets a kickback under the thing. And when reporters tried to go in and record in their meetings, they're supposed to be public meetings, they get kicked out. So there's all these games in play, but councils didn't used to be that way. They're supposed to be like members of the community,
right,
that organise general public services.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a money grab. It wasn't like a career building opportunity. It was people that were actually passionate about the community and benefiting their neighbours and stuff, like organising rubbish collection and building parks and fixing up potholes and stuff. But it's changed now, and in our original constitutions, not the fake ones that the corporate entities have put out, but the British ones, which has a defender of the faith of the people attached. We don't supposed to have a local government, so we're being usurped from the ground up.
Yeah.
As well, and they host these local government meetings for these planning sessions for like sustainable development, and 3/4 of the people attending it are people from out of town.
Mm-hmm.
And you try and disagree with anything that they have to say, you just get like shouted down and spoken over.
Yeah.
So they try and reach like general consensus so they can pass these things.
Yeah.
So by putting out a public offering or saying, oh yeah, come to this meeting, this planning session for this new development, so you can have your say, but you don't really have a say. So I recall what it's a word for it. It's called the Delphi technique, where they
you know who Delphi was, right?
No.
She was somebody that she was a lady who predicted upcoming events, the Delphi, and what she did was she got people in the town together and she would tell them what they wanted to hear, basically, so they would live a better and easy life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, sort of like a forced consensus thing that's going on here, but yeah, they just want to push us into the cities and flood us with mass immigration.
It's a con. It's a con. It's a con.
Yeah, like Sydney's buckling at the seams. Like I've had to give up driving because driving is so dangerous in Sydney.
Holy crap!
Yeah, it's nuts. Like I can't wait to get out, but I'm just like trying to get in enough time in my current employment to be in a position to negotiate so I can work remotely. Cause,
yeah. Well, we're going to wish you the best.
Actually,
continue.
Yeah, or try and get my own show on the road or something. Maybe I can do some YouTube stuff.
I'll be a guest on your show, buddy. Don't worry. I'll plug you every time you go on. Anyways.
Yeah, well, I've got plenty of things to talk about and my own opinions on things, so maybe people will listen.
ANON, I want to do a video with you, a non-live video, and I want to do it. Can you write out for me top 10 reasons why I'm leaving Sydney?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, I'm more of sort of on the grounds, living it, than really analysing sort of banker stuff.
No, I'm not talking about banker stuff. I'm talking about, in your heart of hearts, the top 10 reasons why you are leaving Sydney. I'd like to know. You write out a list and we'll go over it on one. We'll do a recording together and then I'll just upload it. It doesn't have to be live.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, sounds good. So we can add some graphics in later and stuff. And
of course, yes.
Clips or whatever.
Yeah.
Just do a proper edit sort of thing.
Yep, you know I'm good at that with my video games.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm gonna have to let you go. We're coming up to an hour here. I got to continue with the next topic here. But thanks for your insight on Australia, the whole fruit scandal, and it all boils down to bigger pictures, like usual. Thank you so much, Anon. God bless you, and have yourself a good night.
Okay, see you, mate. Bye.
Good night.